So I'd like to welcome everybody back this week. We are back in Montgomery and have the absolute pleasure of speaking with ADRS. We're focusing today on Vocational Rehabilitation Service. And at this point, I would just like to hand it over and allow you to both introduce yourselves.
Okay, well, we won't fight over it. Hello out there to your audience. My name is James Myrick. I am the Assistant Commissioner for the department as far as our general program is concerned. As far as my background and history with the agency, of course, I've had a 40-year career in the field of rehabilitation. I've been an employee with the agency here for 30 years. And that's kind of who I am.
Now, is that 30 years with ADRS?
Yes, 30 years with the Department of Rehabilitation Services.
ADRS like the back of your hand?
Well, you know, I've been around a while. I've been fortunate to work in different capacities within the agency. I've been a rehabilitation counselor. I've connected with the community in terms of engaging with employers to open up doors and create opportunities for employment for our consumers. Been a supervisor within the agency, been a specialist at quality assurance, and here I am now as assistant commissioner. So it's been a great career with the agency for over 30 years.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
And sir?
Well, good afternoon. I really appreciate you, Alex, and Alabama Care being interested in our program. I'm also Assistant Commissioner over Blind and Deaf VR Services. My background in rehabilitation has been similar to James. We've kind of come up through the ranks together, although he's a little bit wiser than me because he's 1 year older than I am. But
yeah, you would bring that up.
That's a little back jab.
But you know, James said the general program, and I guess Laban may not even know what the general program means, but it makes it easier to understand if you know that under my world it's blind and deaf VR services. Anybody who has blind or low vision or deaf or hard of hearing, well, the general program is everybody else. And our program really represents about between 15–20% of the population served at any given time. You know, so it's a smaller group of specialized folks we're serving.
So I do want to take a little bit of a step back. If someone's not familiar with Vocational Rehabilitation Service, what exactly is that?
Well, it's a process of identifying, well, let me go back. Our program is a federal-state partnership in terms of how we exist and, you know, how we are established. Way back after World War I, in the 1920s,
keep going.
The federal government decided to establish a program that would assist veterans who had injuries and disabilities to assist them with engaging and getting back into the world of work. And after that, it was so successful that it became not only available for veterans with disabilities, for anyone in the United States who had a disability. And so that was created many, many years ago by the federal government and handed down and administered through the states. As far as funding and the existence of the program, the federal government puts up 80% of the funding, and the states have to come up with 20% matching funds in order to draw down those federal dollars. Now, vocational rehabilitation is simply a process of identifying individuals who have various disabilities, as specifically as it pertains to creating barriers in order for them to engage in work. Vocational implies that it's entwined in the world of work, vocational. And so vocational rehabilitation is a process of assisting individuals who have barriers to employment to overcome those barriers in order for them to be able to engage in the world of work. And it's a process, and we'll talk about that process a little bit later, but I think that's sort of what vocational rehabilitation is all about.
So VR was originally started after World War I for wounded veterans.
Absolutely.
And at that point, when did it start to incorporate some of the broader communities, such as intellectual disability, developmental disability, blind and deaf? Did that come about all at once, or?
Well, we're not that quite as old as we look. I don't really remember all of the details, but I know it was after the World War II. We have a video that we actually showed every time we have new employees that does get into all of that stuff. It's about 15 minutes long. We need to play that for you sometime, because it really gets. We can put it on the link, but it really gives you the details of when and little by little how things grew over the years. But boy, it has just boomed and expanded into all of the different disabilities, to the point now that any kind of mental or physical disability of any kind that's an impediment to employment, those people are eligible for us to work with them. There really aren't those that are being left out at this point. So,
and you know, the biggest piece of legislation I would say was centered around the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, and that really brought in the full scope and spectrum of working with people with disabilities and providing opportunities to the entire disability community.
So vocational, what I'm receiving from it is really your line of work in the broader society there. And I can think back through like middle school and high school when I took a test and they said, well, you know, you'd be better suited for these types of careers and professions. At what age does an individual or a family member start to think about some of the VR services?
Well, in the state of Alabama, all of our disability-related programs are housed under one umbrella, and it starts at birth. We have an early intervention program which serves toddlers from the age of 0 to 3. We have our children's rehabilitation program that serves children up to the age of 21. And then we have our vocational rehabilitation program that starts with, and it's our adult program. But we serve individuals in that program as early as age 14, but primarily from 16 and above. Okay, and then we have our statewide independent living program, which is our program that assists individuals in their home to maximize their independence. So under our umbrella, you see a process, a continuum of services. And as a person get older from the time they're born, they are connected and with one phase of our program, and then, you know, transferred into another phase of our program, and then transferred into another phase of our program, depending on what their needs are and what, you know, they want to engage in as far as their life is concerned. So it starts as early as way back when they're just children, you know, toddlers, in terms of the process. And then as they get older, we have an effort to make sure that in our children's program, as they engage in opportunities for exploring what they want to do as they become older, then our children's program expose them to information as it pertains to our adult program, our adult rehabilitation program. So it's kind of a seamless effort.
Yes.
And at a very early age, they can get exposed to and provided information about, you know, our larger program here, which is our adult vocational rehabilitation program. And we can engage and connect with them even at an early age to provide and connect with their parents and the various consumers within the children's program as they get older and transfer into our program. So it's a neat scenario how we establish here in the state of Alabama, and I think we're only the only state in the nation that's like that.
There's
across the board.
It's really an umbrella under ADRS there.
Right.
Correct.
You're starting from birth.
Correct.
And we've had an opportunity to speak with Betsy Prince,
Early intervention.
Early intervention. And so I see that, and the way that I think about it, it would be kind of like an IEP plan that starts all the way through, and
Right.
wherever stage you are, that person is communicating with the next step up and handing off the information. Right. And you guys really step in, like you said, starting at about 14 there.
Yeah, that's the youngest usually.
You mentioned 2 ages though. What's the difference between 14 and 16? You said, well, sometimes we'll start at 14, but 16 is really the age.
Well, under our new law, which is the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, more emphasis is being placed on serving students and youth with disabilities to provide them with building blocks at the earliest age, so that as they enter into adulthood, those building blocks are already being laid with them. Mm-hmm. And pre-employment transition services basically says that we want you to provide information to establish opportunities for work-based learning experiences and exposure to the world of work, be provided information about future as it pertains to what are the possibilities for post-secondary education. All of those kinds of services we want to reach even before they reach the age of 16. You know, in the 9th grade, you may have someone that's 14 years old. And so we want to be able to get them at that level to start exposing them to that kind of information and those kind of opportunities. What happens is the earlier individuals can get exposed to various opportunities to form and shape a direction for their life, the better off they're going to be. And so we want to reach them as early as possible now. And so that's why I say before our new act of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, we pretty much drew the line at age 16, mm-hmm. but now it says go even further down.
It enables you to go a little bit further there, and it gives them the opportunity. It's like a trial and error, and you only find that out through experience.
Absolutely. Well, research shows the earlier the better, you know, and the blind and deaf division actually was starting at 14 before WIOA was passed, but we have special issues with people, consumers who are deaf or blind, that they have a lot of skills, skills beyond the job skills and beyond just finding out what they want to, that they really need to start working on it earlier. If they don't know the assistive technology and the special skills they need to deal with their particular disability, if they don't start early, they really end up behind everybody else by the time they get out of high school.
There's just a few other things that they have to learn that maybe some other people wouldn't have to learn. Right. But this is a cutoff in Alabama. Can you start working at 14? Can you get hired at 14, or is there?
You know, it's a very good question. I think you can with a permit.
Well, okay.
You get a work permit, you know, and you're allowed to start working as early as age 14 in Alabama.
Yeah. There's a gentleman that's helping with some of the video editing. He's 15, and I had to get a release from his school, you know, to make sure his grades were okay.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. But I didn't know if there was a bottom line. I guess it is 14, though. You probably can't work at 13.
Well,
it's getting a little low.
Unless it's on the.
It's my dad.
and you know, there's a lot of services that can be provided beyond work, even if it's temporary work experience before the age of 16. Right. You know, like at age 14 and 15. So usually, that's not the main thing we're going for. But work experience. Work-based learning is one of the 5 services that we provide to that really young age.
I wish that was a program in all schools for all people. I think that's getting out there, getting that experience, and you don't really see a very structured thing like that for people outside the community.
Well, it's really growing.
Yeah.
And not only is it growing within our department, but throughout all the workforce programs throughout the state. What WIOA does is mandates from a federal level now. We used to be separate and apart from all the other workforce agencies, but now we're mandated to be under one program, federal program, which says that you guys, for everyone in your state who needs services in order to engage in work, you guys will partner together in order to make that happen. And we all now are under a set of common guidelines and parameters that we have to exist within, and common measures. And so one of the things that not only this agency is engaged in trying to create opportunities for, but every workforce agency is to create opportunities for individuals who need services to help engage in the world of work, to have those kind of opportunities to get out there and beginning to build skill gains and have a practical application in the world of work through work-based learning experiences, through apprenticeships, through OJT, on-the-job training opportunities, you name it. So the entire workforce, state of Alabama and other states as well, are engaging in those kinds of efforts.
Now, do you have like high schools that will contact you and say, we want to see what your model looks like because you guys are doing it so well, we want to introduce it, you know, outside of the community?
Well, actually, we're in every high school already.
Yeah.
We've always been in high school. We've always had what we call our transition program, where we have engaged to work with youth in school, but at the age of 16 and above, you know, to work with them to help them be ready to go to work once they come out of secondary education. It's just that now the effort is so much more intense, you know, in terms of how we engage in that way and provide these kinds of opportunities now. And we have a counselor who is assigned to every high school.
Really?
In the state of Alabama.
Really cool. I think that
every high
that's
school.
so important, that one-on-one.
Right.
You know.
And we are engaging and providing and setting up opportunities for every school to have access, you know, to this program, especially as it pertains to engaging in those pre-employment transition kinds of services that we're offering. And I would go into a whole lot of it, but I know we don't have time to get too much detail.
I think having one person per school, or you know, that's
Right.
a really cool thing, so that people have.
So they can connect with our agency,
Exactly.
and this is something we take the initiative to put out there, and it's not so much wait for them to come to us to get it. You know, we're being proactive in terms of making sure that these services that we provide and offer to young people are provided in those settings.
That they're available and people know about them. 'Cause
Absolutely.
Even if they're available, you don't know about it. It's
Absolutely. We sit in on IEPs. You know,
great way.
we have to be invited by, you know, school and the parent to be there. But for the most part, you know, we are an invited guest there to explain our services, to connect, make sure that the parents know that this program is there to connect with their child, to help them, you know, receive services and opportunities that's going to enhance their ability to be independent and self-sufficient once they leave high school.
Now, you mentioned that you know you'll start as early as 14, all the way through a lifetime there.
Sure.
What age group would you say is the biggest population served?
Well, I'm going to shut up here in a minute and let you
Go ahead, James. This is usually how it goes because James has the bigger program, and pretty much things that are blind and deaf apply to the general program. And I kind of end up filling in the gaps because of the difference. It's like, yeah, we're like that, but there's a little difference with blind and deaf.
And if there's anything that we're
kinda how it
talking about that is a little bit different, please
Sure.
just mention.
Just jump in.
Yeah, it's an open forum here.
Well.
In a couple of minutes, I'm going to open it up for questions
Yeah.
too.
Okay.
And it's just the reverse of what it used to be. Our program used to entail probably about 2/3 adults with disabilities and 1/3 students with disabilities in high school.
Yeah,
But it is just the reverse now.
yeah.
About 70% of the population that we work are 24 years of age or below.
See, I think that's crucial because you're getting in early, and the investment early pays off long term.
Absolutely. And as we are an agency that provides services to anyone in the state of Alabama with a disability. We don't have any restrictions in terms of not having the capacity to serve everybody who comes and inquire our program. Of course, you know we are eligibility program.
Now, how do you?
We're not a entitlement program. Okay, and when I say eligibility, you have to qualify in order to receive services, and basically, you have to have a mental, emotional, or physical disability that has been identified by someone who specializes in order to do that, a licensed person who's a doctor or psychiatrist or someone of that nature.
Yeah.
Not anyone can put a label of saying a person has a disability unless it's just obvious. I mean, if a person is a double amputee or is wheelchair bound or blind or whatever, those are obvious disabilities. And even I can say that's a person with a disability. But for the most part, we rely on that diagnosis being handed down and being established by a person who's qualified to do that. And once that's done, that disability has to impose significant barriers to employment. Okay, because that's our ultimate goal in terms of ER, to help a person overcome significant barriers to employment. And then there has to be a reasonable expectation that with the provision of our services, that person can and will go to work. Now, after a complete assessment of looking at, what's presented to us or before us as far as what all is involved with that person's disability, if bottom line is that person just doesn't have potential for work, then we have to declare them ineligible for our program, because we are a work-based program and they have to have potential for work. And we go through great strives to make sure that before we say that a person doesn't have that kind of potential, that we explore every opportunity to address whether or not they can do that, and before we make that declaration, I guess.
And I think it's important to find myself thinking, well, what if somebody's hearing that? They wonder how many do they really shut out of this program? And the truth is, I just say very honestly, it's an extreme minority. It's almost never does someone get is almost never is someone determined that they are ineligible because they're too severely disabled to work. We tend to believe that people can go to work and that they can overcome obstacles. Now, do people drop out because they've decided this is just too much for me? That happens a lot more often, if it's going to happen, than us making the decision, oh, this person's too severely disabled. And we don't even do that until we've done some work trials and just really made it clear that it's not going to happen.
So there are some people that would not qualify, but it takes a while to get to that assessment.
Absolutely.
What is available for an individual or a family of an individual if they've been deemed that they're not able to receive services, vocational rehabilitation services?
That's a good question. I guess it all depends on, the needs of the individual, or, what they need to be connected to. We would help a family, if that happens, to be able to explore other resources in the community that might provide them with assistance based on what they're looking for and what their needs are. Outside of our world, there are programs that just provide just services that help a person be able to maintain their existence or meet their needs, based on what's presented, in terms of their life. But outside of the world of work, then whatever resources are in the community that can assist in mental health or whatever the case might be, then we would try to help connect them to those resources. And there are a number of resources in the community that are available to just provide services, to people who are in need for various things.
So if an individual or family member was deemed, I don't know if unemployable is the right word, but to receive VR services, then you would help that individual or family find other services in their local community that might help supplement some of that.
Right. We're expected to do that. Right. We're expected to refer, not just say, sorry, see you later. We're expected to be aware of other resources.
For instance, if a person is not receiving Social Security benefits, disability-related benefits, and we have deemed and that they're not, or they're too severe for work, then we can help provide information to and refer them and help them make application, you know, to receive Social Security benefits, and provide them with the information that we've garnered regarding their condition and their, you know, ability to work. Then that information can be presented to Social Security, which would help them, you know, receive, you know, benefits under that program. So that's just one
But
example.
it's just interesting how that points out. There are, most of the time, by far most of the time, what's going on here, there are people already on Social Security benefits because they've been determined by Social Security as too disabled to work, and we work with them. They end up going to work, either getting off benefits completely or partially off them benefits. But we're always, it should never be construed that because they've been determined by Social Security as unable to work, oh, well, VR won't take me. Not by any stretch of the imagination. I must guarantee you that we will accept them, determine them eligible, and try to work with them for and goal towards employment.
Even then, I guess the ultimate person that decides employability is the business.
Right.
Well,
Because
I mean,
even if somebody was
understand
to
your point.
even if somebody was to come through VR and, you know, be deemed unemployable, even if they could go to their local community and find employment, it's really up to the business at that point.
If somebody will hire them, somebody will hire them.
So I imagine that's probably a big thing for VR Services, is that relationship with employers in the community. And
well, it's funny that you would put it that way, because yes, we connect with the business community and we have relationships and connections to that world. And if we can connect a person with one of those resources and they hire them, then hey, that's a person we would have worked with anyway, you know, because that's the bottom line, you know, to explore with every person we work with individually, their level of ability to work in whatever capacity they may be, based on their own goals and dreams and aspirations and abilities of life, you know. And some people can who has a disability can aspire to the level of being a aerospace engineer. And if that's what their potential might be and what their goals and aspirations are, and we determine that to be a feasible track for them based on what we have garnered about their abilities, and guess what? We're gonna be in that path with them, and we're gonna ultimately help them achieve that goal. One of the things that we do in terms of engaging with any individual, when we establish that they are eligible for the program by meeting those criteria, and we do an assessment in terms of vocational, you know, what their potential might be, and career inventories to get information about what direction in life they might want to go. We're going to sit down with them and we're going to develop what we call an individualized plan of services, an IPE. And the first thing on that IPE you're going to see is a vocational goal. Employment. What is it that we're going to assist you to achieve or try to achieve? And that's the first thing you're going to see. And that vocational goal is going to dictate everything else in terms of identifying what are the needs, what personal needs the individual has to, or would have to, you know, just help them maintain stability as far as their disability is concerned. What are the services they're going to need to reach that goal in terms of training? It might be assistance with whatever level of services that they might need in order to accomplish that goal. So it's going to be a litany of things that we've identified that the person needs and what we're going to assist them with in order to reach that goal.
it's kind of like reverse engineering, but you have to start off with the end goal in mind and work back from there.
That's right. That's right.
And then that'll help break down your steps for you.
And there's kind of 2 points that all of this conversation makes me want to make. One is, yeah, one thing different about, you know, there are a lot of government jobs programs, like within the Department of Labor, where they're focusing on the labor market and they're finding out what are the hot jobs out there, and they're trying to plug people in, and they work with vast quantities of people. Now, you know, we're serving about 30,000 people at a time, approximately at any given time, but the point is, we are different. We're vocational and we're rehabilitation services. And we start with the person. And we have to really get to know that person and help them get to know themselves and work your way out from there. It may be that that particular person with disability, when we help them through vocational evaluations, discover their best interests and their abilities, because that's kind of what that is. It's like them discovering things that maybe they didn't realize they could do, discovering their abilities, plug them into jobs. It could be that the best vocational goal for them has very little to do with the hottest labor market information going on of the day.
Yeah.
So we have to start with the person and work our way out in the community. Now, you mentioned employers. I'm really proud to say that Alabama's kind of been a leader in the nation with this, really going back to the 60s and what we call a dual customer approach, where we have the people with disabilities we serve and we have the business community. And that's the best way to approach it, because if you have that relationship you're establishing, then you can, you know, find people, find employers who are willing to bend and give and change, maybe change jobs around, that kind of thing. But when you're working with the business community, we're hitting it from all angles. We've got the National Employment Team, which is the net, where we work with all the other VR agencies from all over the nation with big corporations and kind of work our way down like that. We might, with our business relations consultants program, we have people that their whole job is to work with business. We might develop statewide relationships. But then a whole lot of times we're also just working with the mom and pop right down the street, and we knock on the door, and we just think, you know, that might be a good fit for this particular person. So it's from all different angles, you know, how we do it.
We had oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Just real quick, our ultimate goal is not just to help a person get a job. Our ultimate goal is to help a person achieve their maximum potential. That falls right in line with our mission statement, to enable Alabama's children and adults with disabilities to achieve their maximum potential. And that's what our goal is all about, to maximize a person's potential. And in doing so, to identify a job that correlates with that maximum potential. And so that's just very important, you know, for everyone to know. That's what we aspire to do.
Yeah, because even if you, if someone were to get a job, that job's not guaranteed.
It may not be a good job match.
Maybe the rehab and the building and empowering is enabling that person to build themselves and a group of people around them to navigate that world, even if this isn't going to be the last job they ever have.
Yeah, something else James said that reminds me of something else that we should point out. A large percentage of people that we work with are people that are, we always say to help you obtain or maintain employment. A large percentage of people we work with are people that have they're newly visually impaired, for example, or people that have hearing loss as an older age. So we're helping them save their jobs or maintain their employment a lot of the time.
That brings up a really good point, because you said a majority of the people that you are serving currently, 75% is 24 and under. 70% is 24 and under, and I imagine it's a little bit different for someone that is starting to show some signs of a disability later in life, as opposed to either being born or something before 24.
Yeah, it doesn't matter the onset of the disability at whatever stage or whatever point in life that a person is, you know, affected by a disability. You know, someone can be involved in an automobile accident and, you know, become paralyzed, or, you know, quadriplegic or paraplegic or whatever. You know, if a person at whatever point in life that onset happens, then we can engage, and they have a desire to re-enter or to enter or to keep their job or whatever, then we are there to provide those services for that person. A person can come in and apply for our services and qualify.
Now, so that brings up a good point. I'm wondering if some disabilities statistically show up later in a person's life, like the blind and the deaf. So the blind and deaf, the population served typically a little bit older?
Yes. Our percentage of youth is, I don't have the percentage in mind, but I know just from being here that our percentage of high school students is not as high as the general program. And it is true. I mean, we definitely are involved in all the schools, and we have a counselor assigned, usually one counselor assigned to more than one school at a time, because they're, you know, it's a low incidence group. There may be one blind person at this school, none over here, two over there, same with deaf and hard of hearing. But yeah, it's common for people to, as it's just obvious, people will lose their vision and their hearing as they get older, or accidents happen. People in the military, the #1 disability for veterans is hearing loss.
Really? So is that a majority of the population that you serve as veterans?
Well, no, I wouldn't say it's a majority, and they do have their own set of federal services that they have access to. We definitely do work with veterans and work in partnership with those organizations. But it's not just veterans. I mean, it's people lose their vision in a variety of different ways, through macular degeneration, or you know, there's just different diseases, accidents, and when a person loses their sight, in particular, it's really, there's a lot on the rehabilitation side before you get to the vocational side. They kind of have to relearn. They can do almost anything, but they've got to relearn how to do almost everything.
Well, I heard somewhere that the information that we take into our bodies is like 80% visual. It's just our main sense there. So I imagine if that were to become, you know, to decrease, then that would really change. It would change
the person's lifestyle.
Yeah,
it does.
You have to go back and kind of relearn.
They learn to. There are ways to get around that, but they have to learn how. But there's just, you know, when you lose your sight, you have to learn how to tell the difference between the salt shaker and the pepper shaker, and there's a lot. Every little thing you have to relearn, but there are ways. You just have to know what they are. So
that's a great example with the salt and pepper shaker. I've never heard that before. Okay, I would like to, we kind of jumped around there on my talking points, but
yeah, we did.
That's a good thing, because that means we're having a conversation. I would like to hand it back to Mr. Myrick. And there are a list of services on the ADRS Vocational Rehabilitation website that are listed there, and they are educational services, vocational assessment, eval and counseling, evaluation and counseling, job training, assistive technology, orientation and mobility, and job placement. And if you would just give the audience some examples of a person with a disability going through those steps from the beginning all the way till job placement.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm going to lead the orientation and mobility piece to Curtis, because you primarily have those services connected with those who are visually and impaired. But I just start at the beginning. Okay, our point of contact, our counselors are the point of contact to the community for the services that we provide, and we have offices. We have about 20 offices or so.
I think it's 20. Yeah, I saw 20 on the website.
Yeah, we have about 20 offices or so located throughout the state. And that's the hub, and we have counselors. And every county in the state has a counselor assigned to it, okay, to be the point of contact for individuals in the community who wants to seek our services and our program. All right, an application is taken, and that's the first thing. And everyone is entitled to an application. Now, I did say that everyone is not entitled to services. You have to qualify or meet eligibility criteria to receive those services. But everyone is entitled to an application, because, you know, this is where a person comes to us and say, look, I'm having these problems, I'm not able to engage in work, and it's because of this. And so what we have to do is to explore with that person, you know, exactly what it is that causing them to not be able to work based on the information they provide us. So we take an application, and after that, you know, we begin to collect information regarding their situation, you know, and there are some things that we will purchase in order to get information about, like a psychological evaluation that will reveal that maybe they are a person with mental retardation, or a person with attention deficit disorder, or a person with a learning disability. You know, all those kinds of things are, you know, possible things that we can connect them with in order to get some information about. There are other avenues that the information is already there.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of us seeking it out and getting it to review and help us to establish a, you know, picture about that individual. So that's going to be things we engage in with the consumer in the very beginning. We have to establish the disability and declare that the person really has a disability based on the information we can glean.
Now, you mentioned if the person doesn't have some previous records of that disability, that VR will actually purchase those evaluations for that individual.
Right,
Sure.
Absolutely.
So why wouldn't everybody do that? If you guys are going to front the money for medical...
Well, our funds are not, they are limited. I mean, you know, we don't have an endless stream of funding. So what we attempt to do is to seek out inexistent information first that, you know, allows us to be prudent in terms of using the funds that we do have if the information is already there. Now, if it's not there and it's something that we really need to, you know, ascertain in order to make those decisions about the individual, then yes, we'll refer them to various resources that we've already identified for the most part in the community that can help us with, you know, getting that information. And we will pay them based on a fee that we've established in order to obtain that information.
So if, what's the main point of, how would I find out about an application? Do you find most people find out about an application through the counselor?
Well, I'll tell you what. We have often been cited as being the best kept secret in Alabama. We don't want that to be the case, but we do attempt to make sure that the community is aware that we exist and the service and why we exist and the services that we provide and what opportunities we can, you know, offer the community to help people go to work. We don't do a lot of advertising and, you know, but we do have material information that we try to make sure that we place in various venues to make sure, and then our counselors, they do go out and they connect with the communities that they're assigned to in those counties that they have responsibility for, and they do go out and you know, avail themselves to speaking at various civic organizations or groups or church venues, or, you know, we are connected with mental health. Yeah, okay. You know, it's always good to get a little help.
She's done that to me numerous times. I'm forever grateful.
Yeah, we're connected with all the other service providers in the communities, like mental health, DHR, you know, those other programs, and they are familiar with our program, and as they have some consumers who have various needs, they refer those individuals to us.
There's a lot of interstate or interagency communication.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And we also have a relationship with doctors' offices and places like that that might refer to us, you know, especially in my world, as you can imagine, with the hearing loss and vision loss. Businesses may hear about us through word of mouth and refer to us for employees, and where we have something called the RAVE program, Retaining a Valued Employee, which is all about just what it sounds like, going in there and assisting them with someone who's now newly disabled and needing to overcome some barriers and get some accommodations.
So,
and we do have a toll-free number, you know, that's out there. That, you know, if someone see the name Alabama Department of Rehabilitation Services and want to have information, you know, just who are they? What's that all about? Is this a service that can help my child or my whoever I'm connected with? You know, maybe I can call that number and get information. And that we have a toll-free number, and that number is 1-800-441-7607. for those of you out there in viewing land.
We have a website too.
And a website. We have a website. So we try to be available and known to the community as much as possible. But you know,
yeah, it's
hopefully it's effective enough to let people know that we exist.
yeah, and people they have to want to, you know, to do those things.
Oh, absolutely.
So if we start off again, so if I filled out an application, I would most likely have a communication with my local counselor in my county.
Absolutely.
Right.
And then we would talk about some things, some documentations maybe that ADRS needed
Right.
to see if I did qualify for services through
Right.
vocational rehab.
Right.
And if my documentation wasn't enough, then I could work with VR, and you guys would say, hey, we would recommend seeing this physician
Right.
or this specialist. This is the documentation that
Right.
you know we require.
Okay.
Once I've got that, I hand it back to you.
All right, you hand it back to me. Well, we're going to establish eligibility based on the information that we get. We're going to say this person definitely has a diagnosed disability, either physical, mental, or emotional. We're going to explore and ascertain and discover what barriers this disability imposed to them being able to go to work, and what the degree, you know, that exists, because, you know, not all disabilities or conditions reach the level of having significant barriers, you know, to employment. If we, you know, was open to just providing services to everyone, we wouldn't have the resources to do that.
Yeah.
So we are more so centered around providing services to those with the most significant disabling conditions, and those conditions that impose the most significant barriers to employment. And so, but we are open to all disabilities, but we explore those things with the individual.
Do you send those people first?
Well, not necessarily first, because we're not, there are a lot of things that you see that exist from state to state based on their capacity and resources to serve the entire population. We are not in order of selection, I can't talk anymore. Order of selection. Order of selection state, which means that you have to prioritize those that you serve, because you are not able to serve all people with disabilities.
Alabama is not that.
And Alabama is not that. In those states, you do have to prioritize and say you serve the people with the most significant disabilities first.
Yeah.
And then you have to establish various levels of priority, and you do that priority level first, because they're the ones with the most, and they can't find a job without you whatsoever.
I'm going to get my water over here.
Okay. And then you go from level to level to level based on your capacity to go from one stage to the next. But we're not that. But we do put emphasis and priority on serving those with the most significant disabling conditions. And I don't want to use the word first, but those are the ones we know that really need our services the most. And so we put emphasis in serving them. But we serve
everybody,
all people with disabilities.
It's kind of like that with the waiver services as well, because there is a waiting list in Alabama for people that are looking to receive waiver services, whether that's
and we're not that.
Personal care, things like that.
Right.
And it's my understanding that ADMH has to provide those waiver services to people that need them most, and they classify that as in, if you didn't have your family with you or some support, then you would be in an institution.
Right.
And if you're in an institution on your own, then that qualifies you as the top of the list. You're going to get the waiver services.
Right.
But that's not how VR is
That's
done.
not how VR is done.
It could be if we ran short of funds, if we weren't properly funded. We're fortunate in this state that you know, the Alabama legislators have supported our program over the years, and even when we had the new law passed and had spent 15% of our funds on these new services for youth in mainly 9th and 10th grades, we were concerned about maintaining our adult services. But you know, our commissioner has a great relationship with legislators here, and the state, and they came to our aid. And of course, a good thing about it, they give us $1, we bring down $4 more.
That's a great ratio.
And that's a great sales pitch too. So
Absolutely.
you're doing that, and you're helping create taxpayers. So the message usually comes across pretty good.
Okay.
So
moving on. Eligibility established. They meet criteria. We're going to help them establish what we call a plan of services. I'll talk to you about that. And that plan, we're going to list all those. Well, we're going to do a vocational assessment also, because before we establish that plan, we want to identify potential, what we need to put on that goal. You know what I'm saying? And we explore that by doing vocational assessments, interest inventories, and things of that nature.
Now, what are vocational assessments?
That's an old term for really exposing a person to a number of avenues to help identify exactly what their potential might be. And that's what a vocational, there are some tests that establish, you know, level of intellectual potential and things of that nature. There are some tests that just explore with the person, you know, their ability to gauge in certain types of things. You know, there may be some physical capacity limitations, you know, that a person just can't do. And a vocational evaluation help you identify those kinds of things, because it would be inappropriate to say, I'm going to put a person in a labor job that requires them to pick up 50 pounds on a consistent basis all day long, and they don't have the physical capacity for that.
Yeah.
But you didn't identify that in the beginning, and then you're setting them up for failure.
Yeah.
right.
You know, so those are kinds of things you do in terms of a vocational evaluation. Just an example.
Are those done in the person's home, or do they happen on site at a VR office?
Well, we engage with community rehabilitation partners. These are programs like Easter Seals, you know, that are private organizations in the community.
Okay.
And they do a lot. We partner with them to have access to those kinds of services.
Yeah.
And identify those and give us a report back.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? They have those kind. You know, as an agency, as a state agency, we don't have those kinds of capacity.
Well, we got Lakeshore.
Well,
You know, we do have our own community, but they can't do it all.
They used to. They are considered a community rehabilitation program. They're just under our umbrella.
Right.
Lakechore's under ADRS.
Yes.
I did not know that. My aunt goes to Lakeshore. She uses the pool twice a week.
Well, not that program.
You think of Lakeshore Foundation.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So I'm getting.
Yeah, they're just exactly in the same location, and that's why they have the same name, and we know that organization well.
Yeah. But
anyway.
that's a program that's housed on the Lakeshore grounds, Foundation grounds, and they provide unique kinds of services that we can refer a person to get any kind of assessments that might be needed to help us determine a path or direction we need to go with an individual.
Gotcha.
So that's what entails briefly, you know, those kinds of vocational evaluation and vocational assessments. You know, if a person has or wants to go to college, you know, Lakeshore program help us identify things that they would need in those settings in order to be successful or more successful, you know, in terms, you know, of accommodations and things of that nature. So Lakeshore is a resource that our counselors refer our consumers to help identify those kinds of needs. So that's all entails vocational assessments and helping us come up with that ultimate goal based on information we can glean about the individual. So we establish the plan of services, and then we identify all these other things that are needed. What kind of training would the person need? If a person want to be welder, we got to connect them with opportunities that will allow them to get that kind of credentialing in order to be a welder. You know, we got to send them maybe to a community college or a what do you call those?
A tech school, like a
tech school. That's exactly a trade school or you know, technical training school in order to acquire that kind of training, welding training in order to be that welder. So those are training. If a person needs or you know, like I say, want to be a teacher, then they got to go college, get a degree.
To get
you know, that's training. You know, they got to get training in order to do that, to be that. So whatever the vocational goal is, it dictates what the needs are. Okay, you identified job training. You know, we connect, and what we always would like to do is to put people in settings that would offer unique opportunities for them to get work-based learning experience and trial work experiences, you know, in order to get that kind of job training that's needed for them to be successful in any job. You know, assistive technology. You know, if a person needs certain types of equipment in order to be able to participate in the world of work, then we are there to assess those needs and provide those needs, you know, as it pertains to assistive technology. And that's a world of just, you name it, you know, things out there that a van modification for a person to be able to have transportation, you know, to get back and forth to a job. You know, we assess those kinds of needs. We have specialists within our agency that can go and look at a van and work with that individual, provide them with driver's training, and see exactly what kinds of modifications need to be done and what kind of assistive technology needs to be equipped, you know, on that van in order for them to be able to drive. So all of those just examples. And then ultimately, when a person is ready to go to work, then one of the things we do is connect them with the business world and with employers. When I say job placement assistance, you know, that's what we do. And we have people that we've hired to specialize in making that connection between our agency and employers to open doors and provide those kind of opportunities for a person to ultimately be able to go to work. So
I feel like that's, I mean, it's like a general, not a general, but a specific plan there, but it's an ever-evolving plan. Like, let's say I want to do something and my evaluation came back that, yes, you can do this. I do on-site training. I decide this isn't for me.
Man.
We go right back to the
all
beginning.
that can happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was one of the questions. Is that a yearly you go back, or how often do you see that kind of?
We always can amend a plan.
Yeah.
And you know, we know that a person doesn't always stay on track for a specific career. I mean, I didn't. You know,
I was doing something totally different.
You know what I'm saying?
Ago.
Right.
Yeah. You know, and that's why, you know, we want to reach people earlier in life now, so that they can get a sense for really what they want to do, and get out there in the world of work, and explore and see different types of jobs. You know, and have a perspective in that regard. It used to be that didn't happen a lot until after they got out of high school. You know, and then, you know, you've already established a goal with them, and then once they get, I realize now that wasn't for me.
Yeah,
and so
in the old days, it was common for programs to have people with disabilities like, hey, here's all the things you can't do. We figure out you can do this, or this. Pick one, you know. And we're just vocational rehabilitation has just evolved so far beyond that nowadays. We try to start with the world is your oyster. You try to figure it out. Let's look at everything. You know, we put James mentioned the evaluations to discover what their abilities are, but we also have tests for discovering their interests. And we put a lot of emphasis on career exploration and that kind of thing too. They may not have any idea what they want to do when they come to us. So just know, hey, maybe it's an adult, I used to do this, can't do it anymore. I have no idea what I can do now or what I even want to do. We have to help them with all of that stuff too.
That's a lot of roles to fill, because it's like a job coach, it's also a support specialist.
And guess what? That counselor has to do that with
that whole county, that one
hundreds of individuals.
I praise that counselor, because that is a lot of different hats that counselor is wearing.
And there's a lot of demands on the counselor, and a lot of different hats, and they have to be very resourceful in terms of, and have a unique skill of working and being multitask and being able to organize and do a lot of things for a lot of people in a lot of different ways. And sometimes it gets frustrating because as far as that consumer is concerned, I am the only person that exists. And you know that, right? And I ain't looking at how many other people you got to work with. I want what I need when I need it now and now.
And we're all like that.
And that's what we are.
Everybody's like that.
And we try to be especially attuned to everybody's need and provide those needs in the most timely and professional way possible. Sometimes, you know, it may seem a person might get frustrated a little bit because it might seem that things are being delayed or things are not getting to me as fast as I wanted to get to me. We do have time parameters because of that. You know, we have a time parameter in terms of what's the expectation for a person to establish eligibility. And once that eligibility is established, we have a time parameter that IPE needs to be developed. You know, but after that, it's based on the needs of the consumer and how long it takes to get to that goal. But you know, that's just kind of a lot of dynamics that exist within our world, and we would certainly hope that whoever we work with, all our consumers, understand that, you know, our counselors, you know, they really have large caseloads, but we expect for timely services to be delivered.
That is a large caseload. They're the support specialists. They're changing from caseworker to support specialist. The name is changing, and they are people for after education to do like an annual plan. For my aunt has an annual plan, and the caseworker directs that every year. And we set goals for, you know, her goals for the year, what have you. They're capping her caseload, I think, from 26 to 30. Moving forward, and this is like kind of a they're evolving her role. So I really give it to the counselors in the counties, because that is a lot more than
our counselors would be in what they call hog heaven if that was the case. Yeah.
I wanted to kind of hand it over, Mr. Glisson. Am I saying Glisson or Glisson?
It's Glisson.
Glisson. I apologize.
Everybody gets it wrong. That's
we
kind of went
just call him Colonel.
Colonel? Will do.
The Sanders look, you know.
Were there anything there that Mr. Myrick kind of went over in some of the examples that you'd like to comment on from the blind and deaf perspective?
Well, one thing's for sure, shouldn't go over the whole process again. It's virtually identical to everything James described. There are certain things that are kind of jump out at me in the process for blind and deaf, like overall for the blind and deaf, low vision, hard of hearing. It's really just about access to all of those services as well. You know, with the deaf folks, they have their own language, and with that, their own culture too. That's something kind of unique about deaf folks.
I watched a movie. I'm sorry. I watched a movie called The Arrival. I don't know if you guys have
I have not seen that movie. I've heard about that.
And it was these creatures from a different planet were coming in. They had a different language, and the language didn't have a beginning and an end. It was all kind of there together. And what ended up happening is when this person learned the language, she could see in the past and the future, and it was hitting home on the language that you use determines, you know, the society.
It does, and you know, deaf folks have their own culture because of the deaf schools historically, where their parents might not even know their language, but they go to the high school K through 12, and everybody there, all their friends, the teachers, they do know the language, and there's certain characteristics from that culture, like maybe a little more direct, just stuff like that. So anyway, there's that part on the deaf side. On the blind side, it's all about, like I was talking about earlier, a lot more independent living skills training is usually, that's pretty much a given with anybody that we serve who is blind or has low vision, that they're going to have some independent living skills to help them understand how to just live in their home, how to get around, orientation and mobility that we talked about earlier, cane skills, how to tell the difference between their shampoo and their conditioner, and you know, just all of these things they have to learn, that you have to be able to function at home before you can go to work. So, and assistive technology is another a really big thing with the blind and low vision individuals. Literally, and same on deaf and hard of hearing. Literally, everybody we serve is going to have some kind of service related to assistive technology, which is one of the reasons we also like to start early, because the sooner they can learn those skills, the better. But we go through all of the same processes that James is talking about. We have specialty staff that focus on that for serving the deaf and hard of hearing. We have interpreters to provide access between those folks and service providers and businesses, but we also have staff that know sign language that can just communicate direct. All of our VR counselors have to know sign language if they're working with deaf individuals.
Yeah.
And same thing on the blind side, vision rehabilitation therapists that go into people's homes and teach them all of those independent living things to get them ready to live at home first so that they can go to work. Now we do have one thing, we've got a couple of side programs within our thing that I'd kind of like to mention.
Yeah.
We've got a program called OASIS, Older Alabamians System of Information and Services. And that's a program that's funded separately, and it's the only disability group that we have that for, where they, the individuals don't have to be looking for a job, but they can, this helps them, to just become more independent, like I said before, if they're not looking for a job. So that's for senior citizens who are blind and have low vision. And then we've got one other program called Business Enterprise Program that helps blind individuals go to start their own food establishment, either in vending, cafeteria, or snack bars. And the main thing I'll say about that is it's huge. We have every rest area in the state is run by a blind vendor. Every time a soldier eats in the state of Alabama, it's run by a cafeteria. The cafeteria that they eat in is run by a blind vendor out of our program.
So even here at the
Maxwell,
yeah, really, because I've eaten there a few times. My grandfather is USMA 55, and we would go to the commissary.
Yeah.
But that's like a Taco Bell, so I don't know if that's the same.
No, it wouldn't be the Taco Bell. It'd be the actual
cafeteria.
dining hall, the cafeteria where the soldiers go in. That's part of
I
the.
did read a little bit of that online, that the vendor services was a huge program. The BEP was a huge program
Yes.
in the state.
Yes. We could have another couple hours on that, but we won't get into that today. But
well, we kind of got off guard there. I'll open it up for questions to the community at this point. We have a viewer. I don't know if he's still currently with us, but he says, I'm going to get a degree, an associate's degree in science. And I was wondering if there's a job just for gaming and playing games. I don't know any off the top of my head right now, but it's worth, I'm sure that I know that people are making money playing video games through Twitch, what we talked about. But
I have a 20-year-old son. I've heard him talk about these things. I think there probably are jobs out there like that. Yeah. I don't know about them, but I will say this. This does impose one of the challenges of VR counselors. They literally, ideally, should be an expert in every vocation on the planet.
Yeah.
And that's not really possible, so they just have to know how to look at abilities and then go out and try to do the research.
Yeah.
And they slowly become experts the longer they're a counselor. But, I'm sure there is something out there like that.
And we just like to put it this way. Any opportunity that exists out there that would allow a person to legitimately earn wages and become self-sufficient in doing so is not off limits.
Yeah.
I guess that's one of the best ways to put it. I recently, and this is just coincidentally he would bring that up, but we just recently was presented to me by one of my counselors in the field with something like that be a legitimate path to explore for a person. Now, I'm assuming that person is going to become self-employed and doing something like that.
There could be companies out there.
And so, but I mean, it may be companies, but I think this person is saying he wants to get the ability to earn money doing this, whatever, I don't know, but
playing games.
Yeah, playing games or whatever. We will explore possibilities with the individual. If it's a legitimate track to pursue, then we'll look at that. But if it's not legitimate in terms of helping us really get to the end game of what we're trying to pursue.
If it ends up being a hobby, it's probably not.
Yeah. If it's a hobby,
There's
it's not.
There's a difference between
employment and a hobby.
Yeah, I mean, even if you have a business and you don't turn a profit in the first 3 years, you're out of business. The government says it's a hobby. You're not going to get these tax deductions, kind of stuff like that.
Well, that's probably a hobby.
Yeah. Well, there are other things though, because Microsoft just came out with, and I think the gaming industry is growing now. I think with the younger generation, a lot of people are using PCs and gaming. Microsoft just came out with an adaptive controller. And they went through, I forget the name of the subcontractor that created it, but Chris, if that's something that you're interested in, I think there are possibilities out there. There are companies that are seeing that this gaming industry is blowing up for the younger generations, and there are companies out there that are saying that some of these services and equipment need to be used by everybody. So I've seen companies that are making great leaps and bounds in doing things with Microsoft. So you're going to have to do some digging on that one, though.
Yeah.
Just because it is a new one, and it's tough for the counselors to keep up with every individual. It's like a headhunter, but it's not just for one company in one industry.
Right.
In that aspect. I would like to go through, or one quick question I had. There are blind and deaf schools.
Oh, yeah.
There's no intellectual development or developmental disability schools.
Right.
And that seems like a little bit of the state and the federal government are really pushing for inclusion, but a blind and deaf school isn't inclusive.
Well, a lot of it's a lot of this is historical, but it's a big decision for parents to say, okay, my child needs to be sent off in kindergarten or K through 12 to a residential school. Because it's a low incident population, blind or deaf, it's not like they could put one in every town. So historically it's been just one blind school, or not many more than that, or one deaf school in every state. But it has been determined through research that specialty services and people that have the specialty skills do get better results when working with both blind individuals and deaf individuals. And I'm sure years ago it was determined that the only way that could reasonably be done is to gather that group of people into one spot and then have the kids come up there and live, because there wasn't enough of them in the local area, so they just came from all around the state and lived there residentially. So that's happening both deaf and blind. We still in Alabama have an Alabama School for the Deaf, an Alabama School for the Blind. They still do very well. Now, that being said, most of the other disabilities can be served in a mainstream way. There was a time, though, not too long ago, there were a lot more of them, so it didn't have to be just one per state. I remember in Mobile, where I grew up, there was a school just for high school students with mental retardation. They were all in one school. But I think that the research has shown that those individuals could be served. At first they were served in individual classes that in the schools, and then more and more now they've been mainstreamed and are within the classes whenever possible, and that is a better way. Same thing is happening for blind and deaf services too. But there is still a debate out there, particularly with blind and deaf. Are the mainstream blind and deaf students getting the kind of specialty services that they could be getting at a school like the Alabama School for the Deaf, Alabama School for the Blind? They're not living with their parents. They're a residential school. There's pros and cons, but
it's a tough decision.
It's a tough decision.
And there's no right or wrong answer. It really is on the individual. I have a family member, and she's my other aunt. She's a special ed teacher in Georgia, and one of the things that they really push is inclusion into the classroom.
Right.
Her take on it was kind of, yeah, but there are a lot of individualized skills that I have to go and teach this person, and we have to go over. So she was saying it's kind of like, either a 50-50, we're specialized one-on-one, and then you go into the general classroom and learn how to implement these skills in the general population.
And a blend seems to be what most schools are doing.
Yeah. But do you ever think that there will be no more blind and deaf schools?
Well, it's happened in some states, the ones that are where when they really push mainstreaming around all over the nation, and more of it happened, because parents, if they see an opportunity for their child not to live away from home in a residential school, that's going to be very attractive. So you could say that that's a threat. It has been diminishing for years.
Has it?
But there is still a debate out there about it, just because of exactly what I'm talking about, those specialty services that they can usually only get at a special school.
Well, even you hit it on the head. Under VR services, deaf and blind is about 20%. So there's a greater population in IDDD, meaning there's more people in that school district. So you can employ more teachers, special ed teachers.
Exactly.
But it's hard to employ someone, a specific teacher for blind and deaf, if it's 1/5 of that general population.
Or less, or 2 students, or none sometimes. You never know. So, yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I just wondered about that. I was like, well, how do they have blind and deaf services but no ID? Because that's a big thing they're pushing for, is inclusion there. I would like to talk a little bit about the employers that you guys work with in making job placement, work. And I would like to use Alabama Care, this company that's doing the broadcasting, as an example. We have 3 positions that we would like to receive some part-time work with, and we'd like to bring on people. One of them is where I'm sitting as an anchor. One of them is somebody that is sitting behind a computer doing a little bit more of the broadcasting technology. And one of them is a video editor that would be editing the videos. And we're working on that, but how would I go? Are people looking for those positions? How can I find those people in the next month?
Well, let me say this. What I would do and prefer happen is to connect you with one of our business relation consultants. We used to call them employer development specialists, but it's just another name that specialize individuals in connecting with employers who are seeking employees to fill even specialized kinds of positions, or whatever the position might be. Our BRC, business relation consultant, has an ongoing connection with all our counselors. Okay. And what we do is, whenever someone is job ready, we identify those individuals, place them in an applicant pool with their unique desires or trainings or vocational goals, or what they bring to the table in terms of what an employer is looking for. Okay, when that BRC know what your needs are, if it's for a computer, somebody who can do that, then we have those kinds of individuals identified within that applicant pool.
Okay.
And that BRC can connect with the counselor, go to that pool, talk with the counselor, talk with the consumer about this opportunity, evaluate their experiences and what training they've had to meet what your needs are, and connect you with that consumer or that potential employee in that way. That's the best way to identify and get you connected with someone in our program to, connect you to fill your employment needs. There are various other ways that we can do it. We do have partnerships with community rehab partners that engage in identifying job opportunities for our consumers in their communities, based on that same kind of scenario. The person is referred to them. Those strengths and training things that they possess, to make them suitable for a job connection in the community, that's a connection as well. So those are the 2.
How would I go about getting a hold of the business relation consultant?
Well, they should be out there making themselves known, but you just call any one of our offices and get in contact with any of our personnel in any of those offices. Those business relation consultants are housed in our offices throughout the state. And all you have to say is, I have a job. I have a job opportunity for someone, and I need to speak with someone that could possibly connect me with one of your consumers to help me fill this vacancy.
And you've got the 800 number.
And we do have all our offices listed in our brochures, and you have the 800 number. you know,
So
I
kind of
think
working through that process.
that's
Sure.
the best process.
Sure.
Okay. I would love to do that. I think that's something that would be good long term.
Yeah.
Okay, we are going to start to wrap it up here a little bit. And I wanted to ask, are there any events or programs that you would like to talk about that are upcoming or will be coming in the next couple months, couple years, that you guys are extremely excited about and want to share with the community?
I'll identify two, and I know there's some on that side
Right.
that we really are proud of in terms of an ongoing thing within our division. One is our project search programs that we have throughout the state, and this is where we partner with other agencies to identify youth coming out of high school with significant disabilities, and we provide them with employment opportunities in hospitals throughout the state. Okay, and hospital partnership to identify with us certain areas within their facility that these individuals work in. Okay, and they're exposed to 3 different areas of work within the hospital, and we have basically over a 90% employment rate with every individual who engage in project search in the hospitals.
Yeah.
That's one of the most successful things that we do, and it's a wonderful event. It takes place about this time every year, and we have graduations, you know, all across in all these different areas. We have 13 sites right now for
13
project
hospitals?
Yeah, sites
Yeah.
that we engage in with this effort.
Yeah.
It's a partnership between our agency, the Department of Education, Mental Health, and the hospitals, and a couple of other partners that I can't call right now, but it's a wonderful program.
Yeah, 90% success rate is astronomical. It's a great program.
We don't have that with any
Just look at the statistics. If it's a 90%, let's keep going.
Absolutely.
And I imagine that the hospitals is a good thing because they're a large enough corporation that they're able to introduce 3 different outfits of what that employment would look like.
Absolutely.
And they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
The hospital
If anyone is interested in connecting their child that's graduating from high school in that program, they need to call our state office here and ask for Karen Jenkins. She's our transition coordinator, and also ask for Tina Deutsch. I would say Tina Deutsch first. Tina Deutsch, TINADORTCH. And our number here in the state office is area code 334-293-7500. And just ask for her. The other thing that you would contact Karen Jenkins for specifically that we're very proud of is our youth leadership training program. And once a year, at this time of year, we take applications from students. And what we're trying to do is develop them and to provide them with the skills to advocate for themselves and prepare them to take on a leadership role in whatever venue they find themselves, especially preparing them to get ready to go to college, okay? And we take applications from all over the state. And what happens is we partner with Troy State University, where these students go during the summer, right after school ends, and they spend 2 weeks on a college campus.
So they get away from
They get away from parents, and parents and parents love. I mean, they are very apprehensive at first when they bring their child to that university and drop them off and have to leave. But boy, when they come back, they see a different child, and it is one of the most amazing transformations that you can experience that happens within the life of a child who doesn't have that kind of opportunity to get away from home and go and participate in a program such as that.
With their peers. And
yeah, we call it YLF. It's a youth leadership forum,
I think we might be there. Is that something we've talked about? I've got it on my schedule.
You probably should.
I've got it on my schedule for the first week of June.
Yeah.
June 6th to this.
That's it.
2nd from the 6th.
That's it.
I don't know if we've locked it down, but I have Sunday.
Well, they start on a Sunday. They have to drop them off on a Sunday and pick them up on a Thursday.
We work with
Did I say 1 week or 2 weeks?
in Birmingham.
Okay, well, it's 1 week. I'm sorry.
We work with Full Life Ahead in Birmingham, and so I think they've either talked about it, and so hopefully we'll be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an amazing program.
Great event.
Great event, and then they have a big to do at the end of that thing, and it's wonderful. So, and for the parents to come and just see the how their child has just blossomed in terms of getting out of their shell.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful. I just wanted to highlight those two things. So I
can understand those great programs. And,
yeah.
And like I said, there's so many things like that. Well, we do the same thing, but we have to do it in a special way. We've got our own summer college prep camps that we have. And our newest one is for blind and low vision high school students, and we partner with Auburn University. It's 2 weeks long. And the students come out there. It was, I think, 11 students last year, and we expect 22 students this year. It keeps growing. These are students that we feel are college bound, but a lot of times with blind and low vision students, there's this gap year, we call it, after high school, because they haven't mastered some of the independent living skills and the things they just need to learn just to be independent. But they're just not ready to go off to a college campus, or maybe they don't have all the accommodations for accessing the written material. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we've got a very similar program that's just as wonderful. It doesn't just transform the students, it transforms the parents. Mm-hmm. That's what's kind of really noticeable about it. You always hear that at the end where they're saying, so now, Mom, you can leave me in the kitchen to cook a hamburger or something like that. You always hear kind of comments like that. And then, of course, on the deaf and hard of hearing side, we have 3 camps planned this summer, similar camps. They're 1 week long, but we've got one at Jackson State University, one at Troy, and one at Auburn. So, and one of them is an ACT prep. And on average, so far, is the students they take an ACT test at the beginning and take one at the end of the week, and they tend to go up 2 or 3 points. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And
so those camps normally for any high school age? Both camps are for any high school age?
Our project search specifically target those who are graduating from high school.
So seniors that are just now, that are going to graduate in the spring.
Right. And who have graduated just recently. And then YLF is kind of open to all ages in high school.
Juniors,
particularly juniors, particularly juniors and seniors.
Particularly juniors.
Yeah.
Right as they're starting to transition.
Right.
Okay.
And I guess I said ages because in high school, someone can be in high school up to age 21.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, we sort of categorize juniors and seniors, but they can be an age of 16, 17, 18, 19, 21 years old.
Yeah. I guess I was 16 as a junior, so 16 to 21 right there.
Mm-hmm.
We had Kelsey, hello. Okay, so we are going to wrap it up here. I just wanted to leave it on some closing statements. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you guys would like to say to the community? Anyone watching now or that will watch the video in the future?
Well, I'd just like to say that we appreciate your interest in our program. It is kind of a best kept secret sometimes. We don't put a lot of money into marketing. We're more interested in the direct services, but I'd just like to close with saying we're here for both businesses and people with disabilities, and just give us a call. We're very passionate about being able to provide these services to whoever needs them.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, I'd like to say thank you both for being here with me today and with the community, and I've really enjoyed our time together. And for anybody watching, and we'll be watching in the future, please don't hesitate to call ADRS Vocational Rehabilitation Services. We'll put the links in here so you can kind of click on it and see the numbers. And we are going to be live again next week, I think on Tuesday. I can't remember, I have to look at the schedule. But we'll be back on Facebook next Tuesday, and we will see you then.